All right, so welcome everyone to our first podcast. I'm Jones. I'm a caster for HBGL. Donuts has already kind of introduced himself, but Skorpiian, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Uh, yeah, so I'm on Team Killing Service or TKS for NA, and I'm the Nobushi on the team.
And Timo, if you want to reintroduce yourself.
I am a Rep 140 Shino player that loves the character.
Indeed. All right, so we have a few topics to cover here today. First off, we're going to go over testing grounds, starting with option selects. And if anyone doesn't understand option selects at this point, it's basically where you input multiple buttons and the game reads it in a sort of funky way. So for example, the most popular option select is zone option select, where a player will input both light and heavy to parry an attack. And if the opponent lets the attack go, it parries. And if they feint, the zone comes out, so they aren't susceptible to a guard break if they threw just a normal heavy. And that's not the only example of an option select. There's also GB select, bash select, a couple of others that, and when they're all combined together, it makes it very hard as an attacker to make the correct read because your opponent has, 5 options that they're able to go into, even more in some cases, depending on the character. So how did TG feel for us with option selects gone from the game?
Alright, so without option selects, I feel like the game just moves way faster because unblockables mainly just you only can heavy parry, that's it. There's no every time you basically go into an unblockable mix-up, you're in a 50-50. You don't have 7 different tech option selects to help you out.
Yeah. And as a player that mostly plays characters that only have some kind of unblockable, like a parryable offense, it really felt a lot better. Like, for example, I mostly play Orochi, and despite the kick he got, I felt like his unblockable, his parryable unblockable was actually much better just because it was a real mix-up as opposed to it parryable offense just being inferior before. It now feels like it's a real option because there's so many less ways for your opponent to deal with it.
It almost feels like the game just feels different because how fast it moves, because you can pretty much 100 to 0 somebody if you make all the right reads.
Yeah. Timo, how did you feel about option selects?
I like them since I'm not really relying on option selects at all. Maybe a zone here and there, like every second game. But besides that, I feel like the damage is too high.
Oh yeah.
If option selects are gone, the damage is way too high.
That is a good
also
point.
Bring the problem that survivability, like you can't gank people. Like let's say there's someone stalling on the enemy home point. 2 people, they can't kill him because they're too low, and yeah, it's a very safe character like Warlord maybe or BP.
That external heavy attack is just going to keep flying at a mortal limb.
It's hard to kill people if they reduce the damage.
I think the damage being as it is right now makes it much scarier, and it's possible that zone option select being in the game or not being in the game, it has drawn a lot of controversy already. Just because I know that a lot of people would prefer it stay because it makes 1vxing easier, it makes team fights easier, or even people just want one more option as a defender. But I can totally understand it being removed as well. I don't really sway too much on either side of that fence.
Again, I feel like without tech option selects, the game moves faster. But like with all option selects on, like you can die so fast in 1v1 if you make all the wrong reads.
Yeah, there's just much less defense.
Probably 10 seconds.
Yeah, also team fights, like I played like a couple games before like day one, and I noticed team fights were a lot quicker too because one person would get blown up because they can't option select something or zone it. So you're more likely to just die quicker in team fights, and those that can result in a loss real quick in a game.
I feel like they gotta either reduce the damage or up the health of all the characters if they plan on going through with the
Immortal Lamb is
changes
going to
because
get a
just
very immaculate
the game just feels so
heavy
different. It's like
parry
ripping
right
out
there
the
just to
heart of
finish
what
the
makes
job
For Honor
off with the light
so
attack.
defensive
Unfortunately,
outside of just
the
straight up
flip coming from
blocking.
Danger Coin there is going to make sure
Or
that
just
Immortal
give
One
Lamb
every
thing-
gets kicked out
character
of
a
the fight.
sugar
More
bash,
Zeppelin is gonna try for the
extended
light
iframes on a
attacks
side dodge
and
bash.
the
Very
the
funny.
bait into a
That is still a thing. Like you can dodge headbutt with sugar and avoid a lot of things.
Oh yeah, it's what is it?
Let's
Like
say
500
like
MS of
80%.
iframes? It's
really going to have to
You
win.
beat like feint into GB. You beat most chain attacks. You just get more iframes and avoid like yeah.
Before
A
the
lot.
update, Shikoki was just a meme. Now he's just a monster.
Right. So one thing that I was actually not considering when I was going into TG was just how useful Ki would be, because with tech option selects like guard break select, which you can do out stamina, with that being gone, there's not nearly as many ways to defend yourself when you're out of stamina, or just in general even. So fighting against either an Orochi or a Shinobi using Ki, it makes it very difficult to win that fight in my experience, because your opponent gets like 2 or 3 unblockable mix-ups on you, and you're just kind of forced to sit there and pray you don't get mixed too hard while you're out of stamina. So maybe that feat could use some looking at.
I think it kind of just has to do with the damage, because I mean, if you get thrown to the ground, you're 60% of your health is gone most of the time, just from one punish.
After the Ki nerf a few seasons ago, I don't know when it happened exactly, nobody's running Ki anymore because it's terrible. It's like not even 5 seconds out of stamina. No blind, no anything.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not good. And it also has a 90-second cooldown as a tier 1, so I don't think it's
Wait,
like...
really?
It has 90... Yeah, it's 90 seconds as a tier 1 right now.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
It's been 45 before, plus the stamina pause, the blind, so it was like 15 seconds out of stam on a 45-second cooldown.
Yeah.
So
Kia used to be easily one of the best tier 1s in the game,
yeah, back
and
then Smoke also wasn't banned, so Ki and Smoke Bomb made Shino basically unkillable. You Ki, run around, Smoke Bomb, Ki is up again, Ki again, run around. Plus Quad Dash was also a thing back then. But anyway.
and then yeah, we can briefly talk about Orochi, because we've already talked a bit about him, but 2 things that happened to him in the update that weren't documented were his dodge cancel recoveries now have a fixed timing, so he no longer has a sort of lenient window where after he finishes a chain, he's got a couple hundred MS to just dodge out of there if he chooses to. He now has to do it on a specific timing, which makes it a little bit worse. It definitely makes him feel clunkier, because you have to either buffer it or input it at this one specific timing, as opposed to having a much more free window for it. And the second change that happened that wasn't documented was that his dodge attacks are now heavy parries, which make it much safer for him to attack, though I can't really say I'm opposed to it. But what did you guys think of Orochi's undocumented changes?
Wait, his dodge attacks are heavy parries?
Yeah,
Yes, they weren't
Oh
meant to
man,
be.
aren't they? Are they still
weren't-
light
it wasn't an
light
intended
input?
change. It wasn't an intended change.
Oh, okay. I was about to say if you're inputting it with a light, it should be a light parry, but
Yeah, it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's just Nusha and Zerker that have light parry dodge attacks now, aside from current Orochi.
Glad.
Yes, of course.
But he also has this dodge bash, which is
Just sucker
so-
punch.
Yeah, it's so
Raider. In theory.
Oh yeah, of course. I missed quite a few there, but
Valk,
Um,
yeah. Okay.
yeah, I think that I'm not quite sure how to feel about making it a heavy parry, because dodge attacks that are heavy parries are just so much better because they're so much less risky. Because if you get parried, you're only eating 12, 13, 14 damage, as opposed to eating a 30 damage heavy from someone. So it can be very punishing to use dodge attacks if your character only has a light dodge attack. But I mean, with Orochi's dodge attacks being a bit sped up, it might be fair. But overall, as Orochi, Orochi as a character with his new bash, I think he felt much better. I think that was the general consensus of the community is he's basically middle of the cast at this point, which, I mean, I'll take because he's been kind of in dumpster tier for a while now.
Hey, it only took
I hope he gets some additional changes, but I'm satisfied for now.
I think we should talk about Shinobi during that testing grounds.
Yeah. And on the subject of Shinobi, we happen to have someone who plays him just a little bit. So, Timo, what was your overall perception of Shinobi in the testing grounds?
The main thing I've noticed is they took away his ability to double light and heavy after double dodge, which make him feel very, very stationary and clunky. Then they removed the ability to follow up after a whiff kick. So after a whiff kick, you're open to every dodge attack in the game. Which is like, I don't know, if as a defensive tool, the single dodge into kick is alright. It's a dodge bash, it's good, I know. But, I mean, if it's intended as a defensive move, it can have high recovery, it's alright. But if you want the kick to be an offensive tool, it needs lower recovery. Because I stopped using the kick very early because I kept getting punished for it. Like, why use offense if it's unsafe for yourself?
Yeah.
And you need to buffer everything if you want to use the roll forward mix-up, which isn't really a mix-up. Because it can be... Most options can be, like, avoided by dodging on one timing. And most people didn't realize that the Shino rework wasn't as good because he got very, very hard carried by the range heavy bug. Like, without that, Shino would have been terrible in the TG overall.
Yeah, I think that the ranged heavy walls, or rather the heavy after a kick wall splatting, was a really big factor in what made Shinobi so good in the testing grounds. Not that I think he would be bad without it, because his gank seems a little bit. It definitely seems usable. It seems impressive, and I think it could contend for making him one of the better, if not the best ganker in the game. After if the TG goes through. But as you said, I think it definitely helped him that bug was in the game. So with it being removed, and potentially that version of Shinobi with the wall splat heavy removed were put into the game, do you think we maybe see him in the meta, or would it just not be good enough?
No, I don't think so. You don't have the good gank like Sent and Glad. You just have an okay gank that you can use to like get quick 80 damage in, and then they're close to revenge. I don't think it's gonna be anywhere close meta. He also doesn't have like amazing feats. Nail Bomb is it can kill one person, but it can also be cleansed. It can also be avoided very easily, not like Fire Trap, where it just leaves an area. So he doesn't really have a tier 4. He doesn't really have a good tier 3. His tier 2 is amazing, one of the best tier 2s in the game. And then he has Bounty Hunter. That's about it.
I think that's kind of the same issue that Orochi suffers from, where it's not like the character's really being held back necessarily, because the character on his own is not anything incredible, but his feats just don't really keep up with best feats in the game. Fear itself is a pretty decent tier 4, but his tier 3 and tier 2 just aren't incredibly impressive, especially his tier 2. Once Kunai was nerfed alongside Orochi a few seasons back, it doesn't confirm heavies nearly as easily anymore. You can still confirm things for teammates, but it just doesn't it doesn't work as well. So I think
double light and zone.
Yeah.
That's still a thing.
It just isn't quite as good overall, however, and I think it is kind of hurting some of these characters because they just don't have the feats to compete with the best ones. But if that's all we have for Shinobi and Orochi, then we can move on to Raider. Donuts, did you get much playtime on Raider?
Yeah, I got a little bit. What they did with the zone changes, first of all, were actually pretty good. Like I'd say like in team fights, it was okay, but decent ability to decent range and ability to like catch somebody, but if you didn't chain, the recovery was still awful. It's still easily punishable with any character with a bash. In terms of speeding up his stunning tab, I don't know how I feel about it's better, but it feels clunky. And I don't know, I didn't play much on PC since it's on console. It didn't really feel that much better. I don't know if you could react to it on PC, but I know you couldn't react on console in the first place, so you could. I don't know.
So I didn't get too much playtime with Raider, but I do know a couple of Raider players, and their main complaints with the rework were that with Stunning Tap now being on a fixed timing, it actually had a sort of a change that I didn't consider, which is that it's much harder for Raider to chase rolls now, because you can't any longer forward dodge and then delay your Stunning Tap to catch the roll, and so you're just going to kind of whiff if you attempt to chase a roll like that. And the other big difference that they weren't a fan of was that the hyper armor being nerfed a bit actually hurt them in terms of being able to trade against dodge attacks, which I also heard some feedback the other way from players that were saying it felt better to fight against Raider because they can now dodge attack through his heavy mix-up. So what did you guys feel about those two changes?
Well, I feel like his heavy mix-up wasn't that great in the first place. So dodge attacking it wasn't really too much of an issue, since Stormy Tap's reactable, or was reactable before the testing ground changes. And with the fixed timing, I've never been able, period, when playing Raider, catching somebody rolling. He just doesn't have any real good chase options outside. Oh, yeah, nothing really. I don't know what else to say about that, but
Yeah, I don't have much else to say about Raider either. I'm not much of a Raider player myself. But
I
I
don't
do
play
think
Raider.
that yeah.
What I can say is that if you look at Raider without option select and his ability to like have easy access to unblockable, he's a little better. Like you have neutral unblockables. You have. Is the storming type unreactable? I felt like it was, like even on PC.
It
Is
certainly
it
felt that
so
way
hard
to
to miss?
me,
I
but
couldn't react to it.
yeah, I then again I can't really react to almost anything.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I will say with the TG changes that the characters that can't option select with zones got a little bit better, at least tangentially, because Raider and Nusha didn't have anything taken from them. It was really just a sort of untargeted nerf to everyone else that didn't affect them, which it's not a major advantage, really not an advantage at all, because it's just putting everyone else on a level playing field, but it certainly didn't hurt them.
But Raider's sidearm also got nerfed.
Yeah, that was intended to stop the trade for guard breaks, but it did open him up for more dodge attacks, like some Raiders were saying.
Wait, the heavy chains have later hyper armor startup?
Yes, so now you can say you're playing an Orochi against a Raider, he can whiff his first heavy on you, and you can dodge attack and beat the hyper armor of the second heavy.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of Raiders were very upset by.
Because I know like current Raider people would dodge attack and just trade, but if that's a thing, he's just gonna get hit out of his chains every time.
yeah, the hyper armor activates too late. No, since it's after I think right after the fin timing.
Yeah. So I tend to agree with the general community that I think Raider could use some more time in testing grounds where I'm not satisfied a ton with Orochi, but I think I'll take him.
Orochi
He's
with
a
lower
mediocre
damage can go
character.
live, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Just lower his
I
damage
think
a little bit, and then he's good to go.
yeah, I think both of them had a successful testing grounds and they're ready for the live game, but Raider just didn't really receive enough, and I think he actually had enough taken from him that he didn't move much at all if he were to be implemented in a live game.
Like being able to chain after the neutral zone is all right, but the recovery itself is still very bad if you don't chain. And with the hyper armor changes, and the storming tap changes, he felt really clunky to me. That I don't know how to describe it. Like it's kind of like a trade off for what he got from testing rounds.
All right, so unless anyone has anything else to say about testing grounds, we can move on to the Dominion series.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Skorpiion's favorite topic.
So how do you feel? Starting to sweat a little bit.
So Skorpiion, I was actually talking with you about this last week, but there aren't really as many gankers being seen right now, and you basically gave a one-word answer as to why that is. So why is it that most of the competitive teams, I say most because you still see Monkey Business running a Gladiator, but why is it that most competitive teams aren't running a dedicated ganker anymore?
There's so much that like Shugo has, like especially off of his Hug Infinite, and like some teams are running Hito, so they have a Kick Infinite as well, and those aren't even that hard to get into. You know, and if you run like Glad or Scent, it's a whole setup that you have, which they're not bad. Like Glad, I would choose Glad over Scent in the team, but Glad, you know, Glad's changes allow him to stall more, which helps. He can't get GB'd out of like skewer chains and stuff anymore. So he could stall better than probably Warlord now. And I see, you know, my team currently is talking about replacing Warlord and switching up our comp, because Warlord right now just seems kind of out of the meta. But you know, he's still good, but yeah, there's still so many maps that he struggles on to get renown, and without that renown, he's kind of just he can't stall. He, you know, he can onesie, but there's so many dodge recoveries that he can get out of, or that he, you know, he struggles with, like Zanhu. But yeah, I mean, you know, you can run dedicated gankers, but you know, infinite ganks are nice, and considering you're getting revenge no matter who you run, you know, you still get more out of it with like Hito or Shugo.
Gotcha. So basically the reason that most teams aren't running dedicated gankers is because Shigoki just does a good enough job for them on top of already being just a great character.
Yeah, and Demon Ball, you know, just GBN and recovery, and that guy's losing 3 bars of health in like half a second. So it's not, Demon Ball and Hug is.
Demon Ball is so stupid.
And you can even like spam Hug, like it doesn't even give a tag, it doesn't feed revenge. If it whiffs, it doesn't feed anything.
So it's bots.
Yeah, and Shugo, you know, Shugo's chain heavies are dumb as well because of the animation.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
You target switch and then you basically do an AOE heavy.
Yeah, and you're safe. You're safe. Like you can't get GB'd, nothing, and the recovery on it's safe, like quick anyways. So even if you do whiff one person, they can't GB you.
So there's a lot going for Shugo in terms of just his kit, but we look at feats and he's containing what a lot of people consider to be the best tier 4 in the game. And so why is it that it's considered to be best in the game when it doesn't have any kind of, it's not necessarily like an AoE like Fire Flask or anything. So why is it considered to be so valuable?
When you pop it, it's like what, like 45 seconds, something like that. So it lasts a long time, and you can win 2 team fights in that, and that can just win you the game. And considering like a lot of the games are super close, you know, if one Shugo on one team doesn't have it and the other one does, you're basically guaranteed to win because someone just GBs and they're dead. GBs for the Shugo heavy and they're dead. And so you could just go person to person, just constantly doing that.
So the real strength of Staggering Blow is basically that you're able to guarantee that you land a zone off of like a guard
Yeah.
break, and then a lot of characters on team comps are able to guarantee some kind of 100 to 0. I know Sen's not used as much anymore, but I believe he has 100 to 0 with Shigoki. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I have no idea. I'm gonna be honest.
I think I've seen a clip somewhere,
I'd
but I
imagine,
could be
but
wrong about that.
Sugar Send have a 100-0 without feats.
Without
I mean,
feats?
I'd imagine they do.
The Send has to pin on read that the headbutt is going to connect. So it's a headbutt from Sugar into pin into a Sugar unblockable. That's heavy it's done, which guarantees the level 3 punch. And then Sugar does a forward dash heavy into unblockable again. And that's like, I don't know, 140 damage or something.
Jesus
I didn't do the
Christ.
math.
Yeah. So they have 100-0, so it's
The
fine.
Send
Yeah.
has to do the pin
Yeah,
on
it's
read.
fine.
That the headbutt is
Yeah,
gonna
it's
land.
fine.
That's like the only issue. Send is gonna feign some charges, and Sugar's gonna dodge a bit of a few times forward, and then it somewhat works probably.
There's also with Shugo T4, there's also no like real counter to it other than Jug, and that's only 10 seconds. And you know, Shug still has like 35 seconds on his T4 after that, so
Yeah, you're just delaying the inevitable.
whereas like Fury Flask or you know, mainly Fury Flask because it's like or Nail Bomb like that stuff can be cleansed, or Fire Trap that can easily be cleansed, or you know, shielded with Phalanx or Umbral.
Yeah. And
Whereas
Juggernaut on
Staggering
its
Blow
own
has
is
nothing.
one of the strongest tier 2s in the game.
Yeah.
So having it only counter like a fifth of of Staggering Blows is just it's quite the comparison.
Yeah, and you can have like 3 Jugs on one team. Now, you can have like, you know, if you run Warlord, you have Warlord, Shugo, and if you run Aura,
Perfect.
that's 3 Jugs, and that's, you know, you can't gank most of that team. You can only gank the Zanhu.
Which is already hard to gank.
Yeah, which is already hard to
Yeah.
gank, so it's like
So you've talked a bit about Shigoki. Now let's move on to arguably the second most popular character in the 2 most recent qualifiers, which was Warlord, who you briefly hinted at this a moment ago, Skorpiian, but you said he's not really considered mandatory anymore. So why is it that previously he was considered to be, I say previously as in before Shigoki was the monster he now is, why was he considered to be the best hero in the game, but now isn't considered mandatory?
I mean, there's stuff that he has now that you know, if you take him off your team, you're losing, like, you know, fishing or ledging. Some people don't know that term. You know, you're losing the possibility to initiate ganks, you know, because his headbutt's really quick. You know, 1v1 stall, just connecting other people. You know, it's a lot of that stuff he had before Shugo. And, you know, with Shugo now, he puts himself in recovery quite a bit. And with Demon Ball existing, he's just kind of dead. Jug's still really good if you lose that. But you know, if you lose Jug and you can't stall fights as long, where if you run like, you know, an actual ganker like Glad or Scent or someone.
Gotcha. So crashing charge
Fury
is still
Flask.
the main thing going. Yeah, Fury Flask, of course.
Fury Flask.
Pocket nuke.
But I mean, with JJ being also a character that's seeing a lot of playtime from teams, you kind of sometimes still have a Flask. It's not a Fury Flask, but you have a
Yeah.
choice between Phalanx and Flask. So there's sort of a quote replacement there. But yeah, Warlord's still certainly a strong character. Of course, we saw him be this, I think, the second most popular by data. I'm sure if you broke it down, second most popular character in the 2 most recent qualifiers. So he's still doing great. He's just not quite seen as mandatory anymore.
Yeah, and like the 2 most popular, like Citadel and Sank Bridge, like those 2 maps, Warlord really struggles for renown, and a lot of him is relied on renown. So if he can't get that, he's kind of really, you're almost guaranteed to lose that map if your Warlord can't get renown. So, you know,
And
some
that's
teams
based
just don't
on-
run Warlord.
It's based on the points of the map, or like the zones. I mean, because Sank Bridge
Just-
and Citadel Gate have home points.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So then that leaves us with actually quite a few characters that are considered to be, or at least characters that we've seen very consistently, being BP, Warlord, Shigoki. We've seen some Nobushis, JJ, Jeonhu. We saw one team run Gladiator, but successfully. We saw Monkey Business
Yeah.
qualify with Gladiator. Uwu Gang has been running Aramusha. Occasionally, I know Sai was playing Aramusha, and then someone played Hitokiri, I believe. I can't remember exactly who.
Are you talking about from this last Dom series, or?
I think it might have been a member of Guidance. I could be wrong about that, but I think I saw Hitokiri at some point.
Skorpiian was running Hito for a bit before he switched to Zanhu.
Gotcha. Okay, and then they qualified with that.
Yeah, no, he went back. Yeah, when he was on Zanhu, they qualified.
Gotcha. So that's let me count here. That's 9 characters that we saw. Even if Hitokiri wasn't really successful, we can call that 8. And that's excluding Centurion and Shinobi, assuming TG goes through. I'm not sure. Like Timo said earlier, Shinobi may not even really get a ton of playtime because his gank isn't as great as Gladiator or Centurion. But what kind of advantage do you think Shinobi has over Glad or Centurion, if any, Timo?
His stalling is decent if you know what you're doing. I'm not so sure about when the changes go live, if that's gonna affect how he's gonna play, like in anti-ganks and stuff. His yeah, you lose feeds if you pick Gino. As I already mentioned, his feeds are really bad, beside shotgun or shooting stars. His health pool is still very low, which is not a problem if he has high damage or something, but he's still an easy target to a successful gank. But yeah, in theory, he's the fastest character in the game, which I still doubt sometimes because I'm getting catched a lot by characters with either chase or high running speed.
So it's mostly just a lot of individual issues that are adding together to make it just look better to pick either Centurion or Gladiator over a Shinobi.
Like, Shino's not going to be amazing. Not with the wall split being removed. He needs another TG, he's not going live. Like, that's almost certain he's not going live.
So I do have 2 other characters I wanted to mention to you, Skorpiian, that we didn't see at all, and I'm wondering on the status of. So both Griffin and Kensei, I didn't see really a single one of either in either qualifier, at least not from the top teams. So where do you think they fall currently? Or is it kind of a bad choice to pick them, or is it just teams preferring, like, I want a Nobushi over a Kensei or what?
I think, I don't think they're bad characters at all, but there are still, like, better characters. Like, you could pick Nobushi or Zanhu or JJ over Kensei, right? But I think some teams pick it over comfort pick. Some teams pick it because they just don't purely believe that they're good characters. I would still play Kensei, but I also really enjoy Nobushi. But yeah, I mean, you're not really throwing with those characters. Like I think the qualifier 1 of this Dom series stage, there was, I think Uwu Gang was running Griffin until they switched to Aramusha later on in the tourney, and they were doing pretty well with Griffin. I just think Sai, just felt better on Aramusha and more comfortable.
So right now the meta has, what is this, about like 8-9 characters that are considered viable, sort of. So I think that that the meta is in a decent-ish spot, just in terms of numbers of viable characters. But with gankers being basically absent at the moment, what is like the general comp scene's kind of reaction to Shigoki kind of taking the place of that? What's the enjoyment level of the meta right now? Do comp players enjoy not having gankers, or what's the feel about Shigoki?
I hate this meta. I hate it so much. I can't stand it. Like, it's just a blowout meta. Like, you get in a team fight, right? You get confirmed for one thing, and you're eating a Shugo unblockable and a Zanhu unblockable, and that's half your health, with like half revenge. So like you have revenge buildup, but this I'm not personally a big fan of this meta. Like, the Shugo target swap stuff really annoys me. and just the demon ball existing, that's also really annoying.
What I don't
You know,
understand is why didn't they fix that with the
I
CCU like everything else?
I don't know.
I
Well,
wouldn't mind
no one
removing
really
Demon Ball.
like played Shugo, or I mean, people did, but no one like comp-wise or in meta, no one played Shugo, so they didn't really see Demon Ball as an issue.
Yeah, but
But
now
now that it's meta, it's got to change.
Revenge Lock, Super Armor.
I hate this meta.
All right, well, I think that quote is a good place to end off the Tom series segment. So now we're briefly going to discuss Kyoshin's reveal. We're not going to dwell on this too long because we didn't get any we don't have any actual gameplay yet, so there's not a ton we can tell. But just generally, what did you guys think of Kyoshin's reveal?
I thought he was like a mix of like there was when I saw the character and saw how he played, there was like 3 characters that came to mind. It was like BP, Orochi, and either Zanhu or Aramusha, like a mix of those 3. Is the he had a lot of like Zanhu animations, which look cool, and also the blockade stuff. But I really liked how the character looked and how he played, but I can't have my honest opinion on it until I actually play the character.
I think that's how a lot of the community felt, is that they really liked the way he looks. And I did as well. I'm very excited to see how he actually works. His 4 feats that we got to see, the unique feats, look interesting. I'm glad that they're continuing this kind of trend of pairing the feats to the character to where it makes sense. Kind of like, I think BP is a pretty good example with like his tier 2, where they have something totally unique to that character that just flows well with him. And it's cool to see that they're kind of continuing the trend. Hopefully the feats are, in a good place in terms of balance. But on the topic of feats, we haven't seen any of the other 8 feats that this character has. So it is still a complete mystery until Thursday.
I know. Clutch brought up that he thinks that it's possible that he could have Jug, but he says it makes sense. I don't know about that, but I guess we'll see until we actually, we just gotta wait for his release.
I had heard rumors that they might be giving him a Jug variant as a unique, but it would be really interesting if they removed Jug from every, or
I'll
oh,
be
sorry,
so
no,
happy.
I'm thinking of Rocksteady. Sorry,
Yeah, I was about
ignore
to
this
say.
comment.
Dude, just remove Jug, please.
Yeah.
Also, Shugo tier 4 all they're at it.
Yeah.
But Timo, what did you think of oh no, I take that question back. You haven't seen Kyoshin's reveal. But Donuts, what do you think?
I didn't watch it.
Okay, then this is great.
Samurai.
So yeah, I'm very excited for Thursday. I think that I don't, the full block counter, whatever it was, move that guaranteed like 3 1 damage light attacks could be interesting as like a confirm.
Yeah.
Or not necessarily confirm, but an interesting gank, because you can't self do that. But
yeah, that would be, because like if you confirm that unblockable out of the superior block, that can guarantee a teammate's heavy. So you can squeeze demon. I don't know if it's gonna be like reduced, because it is like three hits from that superior block, but it might be heavily reduced or maybe a little bit.
Maybe it'll
But
work like Shaolin's, like
There
triple light.
maybe.
Or any other double light. I don't think it's gonna be reduced, since it's him doing 4 attacks and then the other guy, and I don't think it's gonna be reduced.
I know.
I'd imagine that it would, that if you tossed a heavy and wall it was guaranteed, it wouldn't be reduced down to the like 25% number. But I don't know. I guess we'll see on Thursday.
I know a lot of people think his T4 is like gonna be super strong.
What is his tier 4?
It's like Zanhu's, but instead of the fire, it like traps them in like in place.
So it just.
For how long? 2
paralyzes
seconds?
It's like 2 or 3 seconds. It's like a Pugio, basically, but it's for the entire team that's around you.
Yeah.
So it's an
So
alien Pugio.
it's basically I'm pretty sure the person has to be confirmed for it anyways. So I think people were getting mixed with like you could pop you could pop that T4 and then just Fury Flask an entire team.
Yeah, you definitely can dodge it. One of the developers said something about having the ability to confirm it, which implies that you can avoid it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the red circles on the ground, and yes, I saw a little bit of it. A little bit. A smidge.
Yeah, I think that is a very interesting tier 4 that is either going to be very good or completely useless. And I'm leaning towards it probably being very good. But if it's done wrong and it's way too easy to avoid and there's not enough ways to set it up, we could see some issues with it.
Question being, can you trap yourself?
I don't
I'd
think
imagine.
so.
Trap your own teammates, like friendly fire.
I wonder if it would like not like trap your teammates, but like maybe slow them down.
Yeah. I assume it does do friendly fire damage at least, because I think it does like 25 damage a piece to the enemies. Then they didn't say anything about the heroes class on stream unless I missed it, but I assume it's going to be a heavy based on the full block and the solid guard. So that's good news for Defender Renown and the characters Renown in general.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it feels more like a hybrid between assassin and heavy.
That's what I was gonna say. If it looks and seems more like a hybrid more than anything.
Yeah, it could be. Really, just as long as it's not an assassin, it's Renown should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
once you
assassins.
get assassin Renown, it's over. You're not getting your
Yeah.
fits.
You could hand someone a perfectly good character and then give it assassin Renown, and it's just like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Isn't the last assassin they released like Shaolin Lucia?
Uh,
Shaolin is a hybrid, I know, but the assassin guard
yeah,
is
yeah.
that was Marching Fire the last assassin guard they released? Then they should just remove it. They should just
That's.
remove it.
I think so. Yeah, because most of. Yeah, there's no one they've released since that hasn't had solid guard.
For a reason, I think. Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully they eventually phase it out, but it's just my personal opinion.
Neck removal? Question mark. Would be nice.
But that is all we've got for
there's no
Kyoshin's
reason
reveal.
for it to stay.
Yeah, it really just hurts the viability of a lot of characters. Like, really the only assassin that's doing well in the meta right now is Gladiator, and everyone else is just kind of hanging out below him.
Gladiator
but-
and everyone else.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
Shaman's an amazing onesie character.
I'm excited to play the
that is
character.
true. Yeah, Shaman's still very good in onesies, but in both fours and especially twos, she just doesn't really hold up as well. And I think that's a big issue is reflex guard in team fights. It just, I mean, not only there, but it especially hurts there. I feel because there are just so many indicators flying by that the chances of you accidentally blocking something aren't great. With indicators disappearing from your screen and stuff from external. But unless anyone has anything else to say, we can move on to a brief Q&A and see if the chat has any questions for us. And if not, then we can wrap it up just a moment. A good 15 seconds here to try to write out their messages if they have any. In the meantime, we could just play the Jeopardy music in our heads. Oh, I know what we can do in the meantime. We can thank our wonderful guests for joining us here today. And I've made commands beforehand because I thought of this. I'm very smart. Very much to Timo. He's a great Shinobi player, a great streamer. You guys can check him out at his Twitch channel. He plays some other games now. Timo, what are you doing recently? I think I saw you on World of Warcraft and Overwatch.
Yeah, I'm just trying to play different games until I see what they do to Shino, and depending on that, I will leave the game or keep playing. Because right now the game just doesn't feel as good for me. I've been having a lot of bad moments recently. It's not enjoyable.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's it must be tough when you play only one character and that character isn't doing great in the meta. Not that Shinobi's really
an okay character. He's like
yeah. Not that Shinobi's really that bad right now, but I mean honestly, I don't know how you put 140 reps into Shinobi. I would lose it.
I have like 40 days on him. 140 reps is just the cap. I have like 40
Yeah.
days plus.
I'd lose my mind.
I
Do you have like
I'd go
a
insane.
shrine to Shinobi in your house?
No.
We do have a question from chat actually from the Laser Toast. I don't think Raider should be focused around stunning tap. If it was to move away from it, what would you suggest? That I think is a question for Donuts. I don't play enough Raider to really have a great suggestion. Donuts, does anything come to mind for you?
I mean, the only thing I could imagine is that they make his neutral unblockable and his chain unblockable better. Like, give it better recovery, maybe keep the stam cost low if they don't do anything with stunning tap. That's all I can imagine they
Yeah.
do with Raider.
I don't want to say the easy answer and just give him a bash. But at the same time,
I don't
he
see that-
doesn't
I don't see
have
the
anything
devs
quick
giving
he
him
can
a
use on
bash.
people's external. A question from Deirbra, which
I think you got
I have a feeling is
from
Skorpiian. We have a question from Deirbra that I think is targeted at someone, but overall, yesterday's tournament was pretty interesting to see. I think in EU
yes.
it was basically an expected result, and then you guys had a nice upset. But week 3, I expect the TKS will probably take it, but we'll see how Uwu Gang does.
Man, size Aramusha is something else. I hate fighting Aramusha.
It's
hate
unique at least.
Yeah, like I like Aramusha, but dude, that character's so dumb. I hate it.
I'm just
You can't like you try to peel your teammate, you're just getting blockaded.
I went against an Aramusha last night in some 2s, and it's I don't know. It's like you dodge the
Yeah.
whatchamacallit, ring the bell. You dodge ring the bell, and you can really only GB.
Yep.
Or you're yeah. But speaking of Skorpiian, we can go ahead and give him a shout out as well. He does mostly For Honor. I've seen him do some Minecraft. His Minecraft streams are pretty funny.
I'm never playing that game again. Just don't even. You can thank Donuts and Jones for that.
Yeah, he's one of the best Nobushis in the game. He plays a lot of Kensei as well. He plays for one of the best teams in North America. So if you guys want to check out a competitive player, Skorpiion's a great one to watch for that as well. And then we're going to give 2 more shout-outs just because their content is a little bit similar to ours. So if you enjoyed our podcast and you somehow aren't following these great creators, we really recommend it. Freeze just yesterday released an interview with Nature that was really interesting. He also has a ton of other great content just over For Honor in general. Tons of opinion pieces and just ways to improve at the game and discussions of various mechanics and how to use them. And then Saresu as well, who hosts a very similar podcast to what we're doing today. I'm not sure if he's planning on making any more, but if he does, that's where you will find them. But that is really all we have for today. So thank you very much to our wonderful guests for coming and hanging out and answering all of our questions.
Thanks for
And
inviting us.
No, you.
and I guess we can end things off here. Thank you very much to everyone in the chat as well that showed up to help. Oh, one more thing that one of our board members wanted us to mention. We do have a Xbox tournament, 2v2 tournament coming up. Let me grab the link for that really quickly, and then we'll end things off. Let me find the link. And copy. And there you guys go. If you haven't seen that link and you are an Xbox player, you can go ahead and join that. It is a $400 prize in total, so definitely get on that if you're on Xbox. But that is where we will end things off today. Thank you very much, Skorpiian and Timo, for joining us, and thank you to everyone in the chat that came out to watch and ask your questions. And Donuts, you can go ahead and end things for us.
All right.
And we'll see you guys next time.